Good morning, everybody. This webinar is here today to run over the updates within HCP over the last quarter, so since January of this year. I'm Rashid Maknin. I'm the Senior Product Manager for HCP. I've been with Everyone Print since December of last year. The webinar today is scheduled to last around an hour, including questions and answers. You can submit questions via the GoToWebinar panel at any time. Just click on the questions tab and enter your question. Please feel free. I'll try and get through as many of them as I can at the end. This session is being recorded. The recording will be available in the partner zone under the webinar folder in the partner downloads. It should be available from tomorrow. So if any of your colleagues missed it or if you want to rewatch it, please feel free. Just to run through what we're going to talk about today, so we're going to give a quick update on the HCP release strategy, how we're doing releases now, and some changes over that. And then we're going to run through highlights of new features and updates that have been implemented in HCP over the last 3 months. And a quick walkthrough of some of the major functionality in there. And then there'll be some information on how you can find out more. And some information about upcoming webinars, including a roadmap webinar where we're going to talk about future strategy. And then we'll get through, as I say, as many questions as possible to try and answer. I've got someone's hand raised. Let me just... Okay. So I will start to move on. So a quick update on HCP release strategy. We are always looking to improve usability and user experience on our HCP platform, both people that administer the platform and the end users. Over the last few releases, we've done a number of enhancements to improve things like installation, configuration, ongoing management, as well as adding some really interesting new functionality. Our partners and customers' feedback is kind of key to how we do this, and we focus on areas that can add real value to HCP. We're a cloud application, and customers are using us to really take their print infrastructure to the cloud as one of the biggest drivers. As with all cloud services, they are frequently updated, and you get new functions, security updates, and we do this pretty frequently now. So you might have noticed this year, since the beginning of 2020, the updates on HCP have been taking place more frequently. We think that this way of doing releases, accelerating the schedule, is giving us a lot of flexibility to add new features, fix bugs, or respond to specific requirements much quicker and much more efficiently. So traditionally, software in our industry for print and scan, generally a couple of releases a year. We're going to continue to be a lot more frequent than that. So far, this strategy has given us much more agility in what we deliver. We've improved stability and much shorter lead time for change. So where we've got specific customer requirements for deals, or we need to implement something very quickly, this has given us the ability to do that. And so far, feedback from partners and customers has been really positive on this. I think the expectations for cloud applications is that they are updated frequently, and the versioning, becomes less relevant. I think everyone that uses, Microsoft or Google products would struggle to tell me what version they're currently using. And, while we are making a change to much more frequent updates, we're still conscious that within our industry, partners need to be kept up to date as to what's going on. So we're committed to keeping those updates regular. Every release, we have a what's new presentation, and version history is updated on our partner zone. And we're going to be doing these kind of quarterly wrap-ups to highlight functionality over a bigger period rather than webinars every month or so. It's going to be quarterly, so we can wrap up all of the features in one go. So going on to the actual updates, the first area we're going to look at is installation and configuration. So it's been one of the major focus points for our development to help customers and partners set up new environments, configure, ongoing management, and make this much more simple. Over the last few releases, we've improved a number of areas that will hugely save time, increase efficiency, give the ability to do more much quicker and much more automated to achieve desired customer outcomes. So I'm going to run through some of these, and the first one really is just a little pre-check on disk space prior to installation. We found many customers were installing on gateways and installing their own servers, and installation was failing, and it was down to the simple fact that there wasn't enough disk space. So we do a really simple check now prior to installation, and if there's not enough space, we'll just let the administrator know before the installation takes place. So it just cleans that out a little bit. The next area really to look at is around configuring services. So services within HCP are the software agents that manage the workflow of the document process. So things like authentication, printing, storage, mobile services, APIs, all of these things. So they're really key to the way HCP runs. Before the latest release in HCP, if you wanted to add new services or remove them, they had to be done individually. So you'd have to go into each service and configure and add. And we found a lot of customers and partners, when adding services in new installations or adding secondary gateways, customers were really asking us for the ability to add or remove multiple services much more easily. So what we've done now is included the ability to add multiple services with a simple selection, so you can select services and add them to a particular server. Services can be run, on the primary or wherever is needed in terms of, if you want to run particular services locally or run them centrally, that can be done. So very easy now to add multiple services. They're added with default values and naming conventions. So things like server1_storage would be added by default. And again, we found that most of our customers were using default naming convention, so we've just made this much more easily. But you can do the granular editing of services in the same way as previous versions of HCP by going into each service and editing them individually. The other area for services that we've improved is during configuration. So certain configurations such as authentication or messaging or mobile print, for instance, they need to have an associated service. And again, previously within HCP, if you wanted to add this service and you were creating a new configuration, if the service wasn't already created, you would have to come out, go into the services, create the service, and then come back to your configuration. What we've done now within HCP is give the ability to add services on the fly. So from this drop down, you will see a list of already created services that are relevant to the configuration you're making. If the service has not been created, we can now simply add the service, making it much easier to configure and much quicker, and saves the administrator having to jump around different screens. The other area really on services is specific to messaging. So within the messaging service, customers have to select a service to actually run the messaging service. Previously, we would use the first available service that was created, but we've had some customers come to us and ask for the ability to choose a specific messaging service. So for instance, they only want emails to be sent from the primary. So we can now select the specific service on the specific server, giving a bit more control over configuration and security on the messaging. Another area that we've improved is around configuration of input ports. So input ports are ports that are created at an account level to define how users send documents into HCP for direct print, for pool print, for storage, etc. And whenever we create an output port or a printer, it needs to have an associated input port for the user to be able to submit jobs. So prior to 3.4, the administrator would need to create that input port before adding a printer, or again, in a similar way to services, have to exit the printer configuration screen to then create the input port to then go back and complete configuration. So what we've done again is automate that port creation if required. So on a creation of a printer, we can just create a matching input port. Again, this is used with default values based on the printer name, and we create these values mainly for push printing. So again, it makes it much easier for customers to add new printers without having to jump around multiple configuration screens. And it also massively reduces errors and help desk tickets, because we have a lot of customers where the configuration hasn't been done correctly because this step has been missed. So as an overall thing in HCP, we're trying to remove those potentials for error or misconfiguration by making it straightforward as we go through. Next area that we're going to talk about is some additional database support. So this is mainly for customers or partners running HCP in their own cloud, and then they will generally use an external database. So we've supported Microsoft SQL and PostgreSQL, and from version 3.2 we've added support for Oracle database. So again, a lot of larger customers use Oracle, and they required the ability to use their existing database within HCP rather than having to create new ones. So this is generally for customers running in a private cloud, and database, the Oracle database is a database backend, really straightforward. Again, very relevant for large enterprises and organizations with those kind of mission critical databases. From version 3.2 of HCP and onwards, we now support Oracle database version 19C, which is the base standard now for Oracle database, and it supports some of the older families. The next area we're going to talk about is access control. So a number of new improvements on card management and access control. So one of the new functions is the ability to set a maximum number of cards that a user can register for authentication. So this is by default now set to 10. Previously there was no limit, and this gives customers a lot more potential for security on managing which cards can be registered. So, you know, a lot of organizations use standard RFID readers, and lots of cards that aren't necessarily the desired access control cards also have RFID and could be registered to be used as an alternative to log in to the MFP. So this gives the ability to limit that to specific cards or card IDs. The other area on card management is, it seems like a fairly minor change, but it's one that comes up quite commonly. It's the ability to manage automatically cards and card registrations for changed or deleted usernames. So for instance, if a user gets married and changes their name, the card ID would be associated to an orphan user record, because the user record would have been updated from Mrs. Smith to Mrs. Jones in the LDAP or Active Directory or user authentication system, and that card ID would be registered to a username that no longer exists within HCP. So what we've done now is added some checks in the back end to automatically delete or remove entries where the username is no longer present, and that gives the ability for the card to be easily reused and enrolled again for the new user against the new username without any manual deletion of records. So again, for administrators, this is something that just removes what seems like a minor problem, but one that was actually occurring quite frequently. The other area on access control and security around passwords is we've added some permissions for one-time passwords. So we've added an access control to give rights for viewing or generating one-time passwords. So this can be used by help desk and support members who, if a user forgets their password or needs to re-log in at the MFP with a one-time password, this can be either viewed or not viewed depending on permissions, and there is also a permission to generate a new password or not, and that will be automatically emailed to the user. The next area I'm going to talk about is around the PC client and driver, so generally printing in general. So HCP, we can deliver jobs to multiple manufacturers and devices without the need for vendor-specific or dedicated drivers. It's one of the key benefits of HCP and one of the things that customers really like. To do this processing, formatting, converting, rendering, job delivery from multiple formats and business systems to a number of different printers and multifunction devices, it's a big focus in our development, and it's a huge thing that we're really proud of the work we've done on this. There are multiple enhancements that we're going to talk about around quality, processing time, speed, security, storage options here. I'm going to go through the main highlights, and you can catch up on our partner zone with the full version history, but I'm going to just run through some of the key things that we've done. So the first one is really quite a big thing. It's done in the back end, so users don't necessarily know that this is there, but it gives a huge amount of benefit. So we have done some pre-optimization, both from the PC client and on the server side of processing jobs. This is particularly useful for large, complex PDFs and graphical jobs. And we do some pre-optimization where we do some flattening and some optimization of the files to basically make them ready and available and smaller and printing quicker and better quality on most of the devices that we print to. So there's some new configuration options within the driver. So we have this page output quality, and what we've done is we have these options: draft, normal, high, photographic. They're mapped to these DPIs: 150, 300, 600, 1200. We've also added an option for no flattening, so we don't do any of the pre-optimization. Again, a lot of the devices that we work with, particularly some of the older devices, they handle PDF and PCL printing in what we'd call non-standard ways. So keeping the old option in there without the pre-optimization we felt was better in case of some of the older devices that don't handle PDF so well, and an automatic which just selects normal as default. So this is, particularly for larger jobs, has hugely reduced the processing time and the time to print and first page out in HCP. We've done some extensive testing on this, and it's really got some huge benefits for particularly larger jobs. But users will generally get a much better experience and much quicker job delivery now using this. We've also done some things around default paper format configuration. So when we deliver the PC client and it's installed, there are a number of configuration options. Previously, we would take the default paper size based on the system settings, and so for example, if it was UK English, it would be A4. If it was US English, the default paper format would be US letter. But we find that a lot of our customers maybe have keyboards set to US English or system settings, but they're in Europe and their default paper format should be A4. So we've included the ability to configure this now in the delivery of the PC client. We've also added within HCP a printer description field. So this is just a text field to allow a friendly description of the printer to be added. So this just makes it much easier for administrators in HCP to identify devices. You can have floor 1, building 2, corridor, printer, that kind of thing put in there, and it just makes it a lot easier for a friendly name to be given for each device. The other area on PC client is around storage configuration. So we have a huge amount of flexibility in HCP in terms of being able to store jobs locally on gateways within the PC client or on the server in the cloud. A lot of customers like to store jobs locally, so it doesn't leave their network, and it's delivered directly from the PC to the device without needing to go up and down to the cloud. However, there were some configuration options that were still enabled where we could, even if there was no gateway, we could click store and deliver via gateway, or if customers wanted jobs not to be stored on a gateway, we didn't disable this option. So now we have the option to grey out and disable store and deliver via gateway or store and deliver locally. So it gives customers much more control over the configuration and ensuring that users stick to the configuration that they've implemented. Well, the other area around the job handling for local storage mode that's had some improvement is where we lose connection to the HCP primary server. So HCP again has an offline mode. So if clients or gateways or servers are offline, we can switch to offline mode and continue to print normally, cache the data that needs to be passed back to the server for accounting and reporting. So that's always been in HCP, but we found that connections being lost during processing, particularly of big jobs, would mean that the print job may appear to have been sent but not ever reach the printer. So we've just added some logic, again, not visible to the users, but it certainly will improve their experience if they've ever come across this. We've added some steps to retry submitting the print job in this scenario. So if we lose connection during job processing, the job will then be retried a couple of times before switching to offline mode. This should then ensure that jobs are always delivered, and if they're not delivered, the user is informed why. Next area is around media selection. So this is new from HCP 3.4. We've added a media selection option so that we can select multiple types of specific media for print output. So this information is sent along with the print job, and then when it's delivered to the printer, it's in the metadata. So for instance, if a job is set to center's letterhead and you've configured a tray on the MFP or printer that is loaded with letterhead and is configured to letterhead, the job will be automatically routed to that tray. So it gives some options on delivery without having to do tray selection, and utilizing the printer's configuration for media. So, things like transparencies, letterheads, labels, envelopes can be loaded in particular trays and configured on the printer. And now we can deliver directly to that tray just by selecting the media type within HCP. We're also going to talk a little bit about the PC client and certificates. So, these are used to secure connections between the PC client and the server and the PC client within the customer's network. We've now added the ability to specify a specific subject pattern. So effectively, the way the PC client would use certificates is it would take the first relevant available certificate with a private key. Now we can specify exactly which certificate PC client uses. So it just gives some stronger validation for those trusted configurations. And we've also disabled by default something called online certificate status protocol. This is something that again we'd find would be misconfigured quite often. This is for private certificates and users that if customers are using private certificates, they would generally have this enabled. But if they were using just standard certificates, then if this is enabled, it would cause a misconfiguration and they would have certificate errors. So we've just turned this off by default to ensure that it's only turned on by people that actually need it. A couple of other areas around print and enhancements there. So we've actually done some updates on our PDF conversion engine and added some additional types of PDF conversion and options within there to give, again, some greater flexibility for printing on devices. Again, we work with a huge number of devices and they all have different PDF engines and different ways of processing. So we've added some different options in there to give flexibility for printing across different manufacturers with different PDF processing options. And again, the similar thing for PostScript. We've added PostScript 2, an option there to give greater flexibility on how we submit jobs and the ability to kind of tweak how they come out. And if we have performance issues or quality issues, generally we've got some options to tweak and optimize how we submit jobs using these new PDF and PostScript options. And I think the last area on this is around the finishing options. We've made some improvements on finishing options and things like booklet and collation and how we manage margins and duplex. So again, we should see some major improvements across multiple across all manufacturers when printing from HCP. So the last area I'm going to run through is around reporting. So we've made some minor enhancements in reporting. We've had a number of customers come to us and ask for some additional group or department-based reporting, so they can charge back across business units either internally. So we've added to our standard reports group-based reporting or department-based reporting. This department field can be mapped to a directory attribute in LDAP or Azure or Okta, or can be created locally. And we can now run additional reports as well as by device and by user. We can run these reports for print, copy, and scan by department. And these reports are, as previously, they can be run within HCP or they can be exported as PDF, XLS, CSV, and sent to other systems. So that's really a brief summary of some of the major updates that we've had over the last 3 versions. Just to kind of recap, we are releasing more frequently. It gives us the ability to add these new features, fix bugs, and respond to requirements much quicker. The enhancements over the past quarter, we've added some really useful features and some new functions around installation, configuration, day-to-day management, the authentication, security, and some huge ones on print quality and speed. There's a ton of other updates which are not included in this presentation, but you can find all of our updates listed in the HCP version history. We are continuing, during this period to develop, and we've got some really big plans. But as ever, we'd love to get input from our partners and from our customers in helping us shape what we do next and how we move the product forward. So, please contact your account managers and pre-sales consultants and product management, directly. We're more than happy to take your input and feed that into our development plans. So that more detailed information on new features, everything's updated in our manual on the partner zone. We've got places now, if you want to book time with us, you can do it via our website. If you want to request a trial or get some more information on updates, that can be done, and our version history is linked in this presentation. I just want to, before we go to questions, just let you guys know that we're doing a huge number of different webinars on different topics. The next one I'm running is on the 27th of May, where we're going to talk about the roadmap and future developments. But if you go to everyoneprint.com/partner webinars, you'll see a list of all of our upcoming webinars, and you can register for them there. And all of these webinars are being recorded and available in our partner zone. We expect generally they're available from the next day after we've done the webinar. So if you miss any, or if there's topics in there that are interesting, feel free to go there and have a look at previous webinars.